Leo is a leading figure in healthcare innovation and entrepreneurship. He recently founded the Venture Radiance Institute aimed at empowering health and deep tech ventures with systematic approaches to drive successful innovation. As the co-founder of Glaice Health, Leo has pioneered a digital companion that helps people with diabetes manage their health with personalized, actionable advice. His work combines design, tech, and management to create impactful, scalable solutions. Leo's experience also includes roles as venture capital venture partner and a healthcare executive at Sigma Square Society, collaborating with over 100 tech startups and industry leaders. In this episode, we'll also discuss the broader AI healthcare landscape as applied to builders and entrepreneurs in the space. Despite soaring global spending, health outcomes like life expectancy are plateauing or even declining in some cases, and disease prevalence is rising. Is AI and tech like context-aware personalized healthcare the solution? Let's hear more from Leo. Hi, Leo. Thanks for coming on the pod and being willing to share with us. So let's start with how you got here. What's been your journey into healthcare innovation and what's the industry been like?
Absolutely. Super cool to be here. Thanks for the invite, Chef and Alex. Super happy. Really looking forward to our conversation. Maybe what brought me into healthcare, it was already starting in school when I was in the ninth grade. We examined the human heart in biology, and I was like super amazed by what it's capable of. And since then, I really started working on some projects next to it. And when I went to university, I decided to study product development because, like, I'm a builder by heart, and I always was. And so every product I had ended up in being like something around healthcare or something that improves health. So it was really early on. And then when I went to Fraunhofer, building their deep tech accelerator, I was like really focusing on the deep tech healthcare ventures, life science ventures, and was super impressed by what they can do. And so I really got dragged in more and more. And then I ended up at Unternehmertum, where I then also met my co-founders. All of them were also super interested into healthcare. So it was literally no way that we ended up that was the only way that we ended up in healthcare. Because like everyone had a passion. We all worked in healthcare before. And for me, it's like a really intrinsic motivation. And I think what when there is one thing I can say then that I really love sustainable health and making sure that you can influence your health for a better health span and a longer lifespan with good health. So that's what I'm striving for. And so I ended up. Yeah.
Nice. Can you tell us just a little bit about Glaice, what you're currently working on, and what are its core missions?
Absolutely. So I think what we are doing is we are enabling people with diabetes to have a better life. We are always talking about empowering people, and the main thing is helping them to make informed decisions for a better overall health. So what we developed is a metabolic algorithm that analyzes the glucose levels and matches it with scientific medical guidelines to give them the right information at the right time so that they can make informed decision towards a better life and really empower them to take their health into their own hands. I think, yeah, that's what we are doing and currently in the clinical trial of the solution. And yeah, really looking forward for the next steps.
Nice. Like we've discussed this before, but this what you're working on right now is working on the uh, transition from treatment to prevention. Can you explain a little bit more about how that transition happens with the tech that you're building?
Absolutely. So what we are doing, so we started in type 1 diabetes. So in that case, we were not too much in prevention, but we were actually empowering people to really navigate their disease management in a better way. But what we are doing now is also like we are enabling people to understand what impacts their health and how their behavior and lifestyle impacts their health. So we can nudge them in the right direction and really support them to understand what's good for them and what's not good for them. Because like understanding your body processes and really acting on it is like something we have the data, but we only very few people are able to really know what to do with the data and act on it. And we are helping people to really act on the data and making sure that they go towards a better health.
Nice. Yeah, there are also side effects of things like this, like unnecessary medication. If you're able to basically take your own healthcare into your own hands, you're able to basically prevent it and maybe avoid some medications you might not actually want to be on. So yeah, I love that. Can we go more into like your vision for the future? So again, like we just discussed before, in 20 years' time, if anything is possible, what would you have?
I think my future when it comes to health would be like enabling people to really make informed decisions. I think that's one of the most important things. And I think we are right now in an age where this is possible because with all the data we have so many biomarkers we can now measure and really getting the data out of it and also match it with the right guidelines. I think there is so much science out there which is still not used in the right way. And combining both of this, and especially with AI, I see like a huge potential in AI because it really can discover and show certain patterns. And by that, you can then make informed decision based on your data and your body and the medical scientific guidelines. And I think, as you already mentioned, my vision for the future is like not treating diseases only with medication because like I think of course it's good that we have medication and we have a lot of pharmaceuticals, but the how we use them is definitely not something I really like because I think we definitely tend to only treat symptoms instead of really making sure we discover the root cause and address that root cause. And I think that's a problem that will lead to that already leads to super high spending in the healthcare system. And I think there is definitely an opportunity to reduce this and make sure that we can really start something else before and experiment on the level where it is possible to experiment. Of course, there are some certain diseases or some situations where you should not experiment, but you should take, of course, the solution that works right away. But there are so many things where you can start with a way lower dosage, or maybe even not with medication, but making lifestyle changes and making sure that you navigate your health on your own. And I think that's my vision. My vision is to no matter what, like I think Glaice is only a stepping stone to that helps to reach that vision. And I think what's very important is to really enable everyone to understand their health and also educate them that the desire arises that they really want to have better health and manage their health in the best way possible. I think that's what's my vision is, Aaron.
To expand on that, is this a future in which, with enough biometric data capture and well-designed interfaces, people can establish cause-effect relationships between their health outcomes and the actual inputs they have? So that might be if they're smokers, for example, or if they sleep poorly. Do you see us in a place where in the future we could be like, well, my sleep has gone downhill significantly the last 3, 4 months. I've slept quite poorly, and my health has deteriorated based on these effects. Is this something that you would see would be a possibility in the future?
Absolutely. I think that's exactly what's the interesting part because you can see cause and effect. And that's the beauty that you literally you can literally understand what causes certain things and then you can make the decision on your own. So you are empowered to make the decisions and also prevent certain things and change your behavior because you already see this. And if we look at the far future, which is not that far, to be honest, I think. When we have, like, for example, digital models, or in the end, like maybe even digital twins of us, where we can see and even maybe model processes. How does it look if I behave that way? And how does it look if I change this behavior? Then this will be amazing. And I think that's possible. And we're not too far away from that. Like to see literally, okay, if I choose to eat that, how will this affect based on the biometric data I already gathered my in my general health? And then I can make a decision, wow, is this really worth it? Because like for me to be honest, like sometimes when I eat healthy, I'm like, Yes, okay, because I want to eat healthy, but sometimes I feel like the craving and I'm like, I don't want to eat healthy. And then I don't care, but I can make the decision and I can make a decision. Okay, to be honest, right now, this would be better to eat. And I'm okay with that. And I can make the decision still, but I see the effect. And maybe some other day I'm like, okay, still is probably another choice is better, but I'm currently craving for this one, and I still want to live a life with joy and worth living, and I don't want to design only the I don't know, only possible best health, but I still want to enjoy and also maybe sometimes eat something that's not healthy. And I think we can do it. And that's one thing which is very interesting. We need to design the solutions around those problems that we don't feel bad for doing it. That we don't feel bad later on because I'm like, okay, I ate something unhealthy, and I could also have like a healthier choice. And this is the crucial point to design solutions in a way that they don't make you feel bad if you sometimes also do what you crave for. I think that's very essential for the long-term success of doing it.
Yeah.
That was a very long answer to that.
That's a good answer. It's basically analysis stress that you touched on.
Yeah.
Because when you do make this transition between doctors and patients actually being partners instead of the doctor being a gatekeeper of
Mm,
the information, there is a risk uh, of all the information on your own health being provided to you actually cause stress in certain areas. I know I measure my sleep on my Galaxy Watch, and sometimes I'll wake up and I think, oh, now my measurement for my sleep is going to get worse, which would stress me out, and then I would actually sleep worse. Could you expand a little bit on that? Do you think that is a valid risk? Quote?
yes, I think that's a huge risk because like I already know a lot of people who are too sensitive to their data, and of course, sometimes you can influence it, but sometimes it's also because there are so many factors involved, like how you feel, stress, sleep. I don't know, like imagine it was too loud and you had bad sleep, and now you did everything else, you did super strict and everything right, but due to that your health levels are not good, and sometimes you're not able to influence those things, and if this stresses you out too much then your overall health will decrease though, because like stress is super unhealthy. And I think there are a lot of people who are currently struggling with that because this topic is not too much addressed in the solutions. And we already are measuring a lot of the parameters, and we literally can see, oh, damn, I did like, for example, I did my exercise, but I'm still not getting better glucose measurements, for example, for a time, or my probably yeah, that's something you see quite fast. But for example, my resting heart rate is still not improving because it takes some time, and I think that's a huge problem we definitely need to address. And this is the beauty of also making health interdisciplinary, because it's not about that we are not in the age anymore where a doctor only takes care about your health, but we need different people and different inputs how to build those solutions, and also people from with a psychology background who know how bad it is if you always see bad data and you always see, hey, you didn't achieve 100%. And some people are less likely to react on it. Some others are super likely to react on it and be like super stressed about it. So yeah, I definitely think that's a huge topic.
Okay. Yeah, just bring it back to the cooperation between patients and doctors as well. So we've talked about the use cases of AI, digital twins on the patient side, but what about the doctor side? You're busy, or let's say 20 years from now, how do you see AI actually helping, care providers?
Well, I think there are a lot of there AI will literally change anything, especially also in healthcare. And there are so many use cases. Like, of course, one I really like because I think what we need is more of the human connections. And doctors, they decided to be doctors not because they were like, okay, I want to do like, I don't know, all the administration things, but they were like, "Hey, I want to help people out, and I want to have that human connection." And I think like the case I think I love it most because it's so beautiful that we can enable people to really to follow their passion. If you, for example, use some AI which transcribes your, I don't know, your whole therapy documentation, or helps you in that case, or which helps you in the organization, or which translates your yeah, how you, for example, maybe that's also interesting, how you communicate with a patient so that he or she better understands what he or she needs to do, because I think that's also sometimes a problem, that doctors tell you something and you have no clue what you should do now. And I think like AI will definitely enhance this process by far. And I think especially the administrative process is so complex and there is so much paperwork to do. And AI can definitely help here, to also, yeah, for also doctors to get more time to actually focus on what they really love. And that's helping people and having that human connection.
So, Leonard, a major component in your research and on your website, for example, is your emphasis on
Yeah.
design. Data and AI is quite traditionally seen as a rather, I wouldn't say cold, but it's quite hard facts and numbers, and I think it's a bit unapproachable for many people. How do you go about designing systems in a way, especially with healthcare, that's empathetic to the people that are interacting with it, not for them to be, as we just mentioned, overwhelmed? I mean, what are the kind of techniques, design techniques, if you're happy to go into that, that will enable people to be a bit more, how do you say, a bit more open to getting insights from data from AI?
Mm. Yeah, I think there are a lot of things you can keep in mind. I think one of the things is gamification is super interesting. Like we can learn so much from the gaming industry. The gaming industry is huge and it's so innovative to design games to be like super engaging. And we need to also make solutions engaging. And what we focus also with Glaice on is like building a brand that really addresses the people where they are. Like really are not to be like, hey, this is process X, you need to do Z, but also be more on an emotional level, like, hey, we will help you to reach your goals, tell me what are your goals. So we do an anamnesis and it gets more like a conversation, so we also get to know the patient, or the user. In that case it's not always the patient, but to really give them a solution they that is tailored to their needs, and they feel like, hey, that really addresses what my need is. And next to that, I think like there is one thing that's the best design theory you will ever find, and that's going out and talking to people. Because like when we realized the most important step in our entire product development process, and that was maybe due to we all of our founders had like a 1.5 year additional degree, which focused only on how you build actual solutions that people like. So focusing on the UX, how does user experience feels like? And I think a lot about is understanding people and understanding their needs. And sometimes we have some assumptions and they are completely false. And if you talk to people, not only like to patients, but also to providers and integrate, especially in healthcare, you need to integrate everyone because otherwise it will never work. And if you talk to doctors, how it needs to look like, then you can build like a super nice user's journey and user flow. And I think that's the main thing which you should focus on when it comes next to the gamification and the empowering factor. But I think like the empowering factor and the factor that you don't see the person as a patient, but rather as a user and as a human, is the most amazing thing. So for us, it's also like we are also not talking to, hey, you are a patient or you are diabetic. We never use this. We are, hey, you are a person with diabetes. And this is a completely different thing. And we also communicate with like chronic patient, and we cross that chronic patient. And below that, we initiated chronic badass. And everyone loved it because now they really feel like, oh, cool, I'm not a patient. I'm now a human, and people see how hard it is to deal with a disease and they really appreciate what I do and what I need to do. And I think that's, especially in healthcare, something that is done wrong, that people don't really treat people as people, but more as patients, and see them as patients and address them as patients. But you should address them as humans. And that's the super important part. And nearly all of the solutions, which are by bigger companies, don't do it in the right way.
I
Yeah.
think you touched on something very impactful with the digital twins. That was extremely interesting. In the case that I think a lot of people develop themselves through visual means, right? They visualize what their
Mm.
idealized future will look like. And I think the digital twins that opens up a way to see like if you go down this path in terms of improving your sleep, eating healthier food, you could become this idealized version of yourself in the future. Is that something that's being taken into account right now in the development of these systems? Or is that just deemed as too far into the future that one day it's a potential hypothetical potentially?
I think it's already there, but what you also need to make sure is that people are addressed in the way that they can still relate to it. If it's too idealized, so if you think, wow, okay, that's maybe too much, I will never get to that point, then they will stop. And we did some research on this, and that was super interesting. The gamification theory. So, when is nudging too much? So, when do you nudge the exact right amount? And there is an amount which is too much, and also like making. Sometimes people, you need to be in the right phase where you don't make them feel too comfortable, because they are like, okay, to be honest, it doesn't really work because it's all the time. I could do 10 times more than what they expect from me. And so we do always a feedback. Was this too much, or can we do more? And sometimes if you all the time demand too much from them, they will also stop because they are like too stressed and they don't connect something nice with a solution. And also if they have like the successes afterwards, they're like, it's super hard to get like the feeling of success. And to find the right amount is super hard. But you will only find it if you go on an individual level, get feedback from the person. And that's again where AI is super helpful, because you can learn, you can improve, and you can personalize. Hey, what does this person need, and what does the other person need? And what we also would integrate later on, like, is like, for example, personality tests. Like, this is something like, there are people who are super data driven, so they only want to be addressed on a data driven level. Hey, I want to see my data. And there are people who are more on the, hey, you got this, you will do it. Like, I don't know how to describe it, but more on the sensitive level, where you need to be um where you need to be more sensitive and really understand them and be like, hey, you got this. Also, if you don't do it, then next time you will do it. And to find the level which is not too less, but not too much, is still quite a hard. But I think that's one very important thing when it comes to digital twins in that case. But that this answer the question, because like I was not 100% sure about like if you also want to dive deeper on digital twins in general.
Yeah, I was actually very interested in the possibility of digital twins. That's something you're comfortable touching on.
Mm. I think like the possibilities are endless, because like what you can do, and what's super interesting for me is like the experiments and the modeling, because you have like a digital version of yourself, and we are right now, we have the first data. So if you're wearing a Woo, or if you're wearing a Oura ring, or if you're wearing the Apple smartwatch, you already have a lot of data. And setting this data, or combining this data with each other, you can also calculate other data. For example, you can calculate your stress level based on your heart rate and other parameters. And then you have so much data already that you can literally see certain patterns. And later on, if you have that digital twin, or if you build that digital twin, you actually know, okay, we have some lack of data. Or for example, you can also suggest steps they take. For example, I see a certain pattern in your health data, and I think this could be XYZ. So what about trying to get a blood sample and get this analyzed to see if it's really the thing or if it's something else. And so you can do already a lot of experiments, and you really can calculate what are the different possibilities. And without without the time investment to visit a doctor anytime, without the time investment to, I don't know, to do 100 different things, or that's a bit too much, but 10 different things, and you don't know what actually works, but you get already a nudge, and we can break it down to three things you could try, that probably are the most likely to get you more information and maybe give you an answer. And so I think like I'm definitely completely down to make a digital twin, and I would love to have my digital health twin, but I think the opportunities are insane. Also
It's
for research purposes, also because you have the data, and then you can also decide to, hey, I'm able because I fit perfectly to this amount of for this study, for example, and I can sell, for example, my digital twin data for this clinical trial as the patient. So this will accelerate also research and science so much more in clinical trials. So you see, like it's endless on literally anything, on the value you get out of it, on the value people who develop solutions get out of it, and also for the healthcare system. Like, yeah,
it's about centralizing. Sorry, go ahead, Chad.
I was just going to say this is crazy because what you're basically talking about is doing perturbation analysis on humans. Like you can take system parameters for us. Let's say, for example, my exercise, what I'm eating, and actually see how it affects my health in general, which is something amazing. So as a user, I can see if I ate healthily and I quit smoking, how would this actually affect my health? And it would actually be a driver, a motivator to actually become more involved in your own health. You can see if I just make this one change, things will be a lot
yeah.
different. I love that vision for the future. It's nice.
And that's the beauty. That's the beauty of that's the beauty of preventive healthcare and data in healthcare. And I think longevity is some certain topics, because longevity is also super huge. You have like the longevity on the systematics change, so on the healthcare system and what can you do to literally prevent diseases, or you have like the super deep longevity where you are more in the cryo and the DNA re-engineering stuff, the cellular re-engineering, not a DNA, there's the cellular re-engineering stuff. And then you have also certain areas where it's super interesting to understand what you can actually do. And I think longevity, or under the name of longevity, there is already being done a lot of things in this space. So yeah.
Brilliant. Another major component of your research is regarding the Venture Readiness Institute, which you established roughly
Yes.
2 weeks ago, and alongside the Venture Readiness Framework. And I think a major theme for reading through your research was the lag between European R&D and their ability to innovate and research, and their ability to commercialize products on par with the American system, essentially. So I think it'd be an interesting transition to that, and dive more deeply into that. So let's just start with why did you found the Venture Radiance Institute in the first place? Why was that a necessity? And why do you think it even is a bad thing if the EU and Germany is far behind the US in terms of startup spending and innovation in that regard?
That's super interesting. Yeah, maybe when I started, maybe start where I started. So I started when building the Fraunhofer accelerator, and I was literally seeing that in deep tech, especially in the early stages, there are some frameworks and some patterns which are always similar. So you need to you can really cut it down into different areas. You have like the market, you have like the product, you have the tech, you have like, for example, the industry specific stuff. I always bundle like market more on the business model. That's what I changed from my early research until now. Then you have like all the, for example, the team, and you have so many factors where you really um, can set some milestones you need to reach. Also, when it comes to capital, and there are certain KPIs you can break down which help you to be more likely to succeed or more likely to fail. And if you address those topics in a very systematic approach, you can literally increase the chance that you succeed with your venture quite high. And when I first started it, I was completely convinced that this framework is like the perfect theory how to found a startup. Then I founded a startup myself, and I realized, oh wow, theory and practice is something different. So I was in the beginning, I was super optimistic. I was like, hey, I know the steps what to do, but then I realized, hey, it's not that easy if you really are doing it practically. And what I realized then later on is that there are certain areas where it is way easier and you can apply those frameworks. And those are, for example, especially healthcare, but also deep tech, the early stages of deep tech. And why healthcare? Because there are certain metrics you always need to check. There are some check boxes every venture, for example, if you're in healthcare, needs to check. If you going for, I don't know, if you're trying to go on the market as a medical product, you need a medical certification. For example, you have the topic of studies, of clinical trials. You also need to address that one. And you also, for example, have the checkbox of reimbursement. How could this look like? And this is like a sometimes very streamlined, not always, but sometimes very streamlined process in especially healthcare, where you really can set milestones and measure the progress in a great way. And also, with that being said, you can also later on um, get ventures and really see how mature are they based on the certain things you should reach to succeed or not succeed. And yeah, that was the idea to really go deeper in this topic again with the Venture Readiness Institute. And that was also the reason why I decided to focus more on the industry of healthcare and apply there and the early stages of deep tech, because I really realized there is a huge value of the system. But for example, if you are founding a B2B SaaS company right now, yeah, of course there are certain patterns, but it's not that likely that you can literally check one box after another. And there are, like I mentioned, industries where this is more possible, and healthcare is one of them. And that's what I'm doing. I work a lot with VCs, different investors, also some family offices. Talk to a lot of angel investors over the years, but also quite currently. And what I learned also in that work with investors, that definitely this would help, because like especially in the early stages, it is not that easy to really make sure if a venture ticks the boxes, and making sure that this venture is investment ready. And yeah, this is definitely the framework that helps to support innovators in that space.
Okay. You know this commercialization gap that you basically mentioned between R&D
Yes.
and the actual product.
Oh yes.
Why?
That also interesting.
Yeah. Why is that an issue in Europe? Why do we not see that in the
Yeah.
US, for example?
That's the funny thing. I work with a lot of people from the US too, especially via the Sigma Squared Society. And that's, first of all, it's like a mindset. And the funny thing is, like, we are like in I would say like in Europe, but especially in Germany, you are like, it needs to be perfect and it needs to have the highest engineering quality. And we are definitely over engineering most of the stuff we are doing before actually going out and literally testing it in the real world. So what we do is way too much lab work, where we sit there and have our concepts and have our technology, are building the technology, are I don't know, developing hypotheses, and we want to validate afterwards, but we don't ever go out to do it. And in the US, the mindset is more like, hey, I have an idea. I will do something. We'll go out and show the world what I'm doing. They talk about more what they do. They go out in the real world and they validate it in the real world. And that's super important. Of course, we are doing it more and more because we are also learning. But what I've seen, I will not go too far, too much into the details. But at Fraunhofer, there were some technologies who were already 10 years ahead on what's on the market, especially in some areas where I was like, wow, this is crazy. But they were still like, no, it's not good enough. We need to engineer it further. Whereas that, no, you need to go out and commercialize it or test if someone wants to pay for an even higher quality, because that's assumption. Like they are just, and I think that's the mindset too. Like if it's good enough, if I have the perfect product, someone will pay for it. Or if I have the best tech, someone will pay for it. But it's not like that. Of course, if you have a great product, then over time, you definitely have less problems, but it never solves the commercial problem. And if you have a shitty product, of course, over the time, if it breaks too much, you will fail. But iterating the quality of a product while you still commercialize it, get some revenue, through the revenue, get some finances to improve your product, or even you can show the right metrics to an investor who gives you more money, that you have more money to literally improve your product or hire more people that help you to improve the product. That's the way to go. And in especially Germany, but also Europe, we are doing this way too less. But also, you need to we need to also talk about the topic that investors from the US are also more likely to give you more money early on. And probably, yeah, of course, more money, but the thing is not the amount of money, but the thing of giving money early on. Because what you need is you need to validate it super, super fast. And sometimes you don't need too much money. Like it would be enough. Some students teams, for example, from some organizations where I'm also in, if they working on a product, it would be perfect for them to give them 20K, nothing more. And with a 20K, they can focus 2 to 3 months on really 100% validating what the idea is. But how Germany or how a lot of the grants or the early money you get is built on is like, okay, show me a concept with a finance plan of 5 years and an entire paper about 20 pages so that I will give you the money that you can validate your idea. So you spend 3 to 6 months to prepare for something to get the money to actually validate your idea instead of just validating the idea. And I think the investment loss would be way lower if you give them less money, but way faster. Because that's what you need. You need money fast to validate, is this actually working or not? So the make it or break it thing. And if you don't get that money fast and you need to go in the process, you have more time to over engineer it. And then you get like in like the I would call it like, no, there is another word, but in Germany we call it the devil's circle, the devil's spiral, where you go lower and lower, and you tend to more over engineer and more over engineer instead of validating the thing, and it gets harder and harder later on.
Yeah, I think Leo, you're touching on something that's crucial to all startups, which is experimentation, iteration, and
Yes,
and you
absolutely.
definitely mentioned the cultural mindset that there is in Germany and Europe, in which there's probably a lower risk tolerance as well, and maybe there's less of how do you say, less of a willingness to come off as a failure, essentially.
Yes.
Do you have any theories as to why that is the case? Why is there a lower risk tolerance for many individuals, especially young people, and why in the US there is a higher risk tolerance? Do you have any theories for that?
Oh, that's a great question. To be honest, I'm not 100% sure. I have my own theory on that. And I think my own theory is that in the US, failing is not if you fail, it's completely normal. Like some VCs are like, okay, this person is a first-time entrepreneur. It's okay. If this person already failed and is now a second-time founder, they are like, okay, they already did it, so probably interesting. And in Germany, we have much more the mindset of, oh, failure is something you should always make sure that you circumvent it. And I think fail fast, fail early is not a German mindset. It's like more the mindset of the US. And I think like fail early and fail cheap is also not a mindset. And I think that's something which is very important, to have the mindset that you have an acceptance of failure and that failure is nothing wrong. And also what I'm working a lot when I don't know, when I'm giving like speeches in accelerators or so, I focus on the topic of failing forward. Because like if you fail forward with every time you fail, is like something you learn, and you really learn it by heart, because if you fail, that hurts. But if you fail super fast and you fail super cheap, that's in the end, you need way less capital than if you, I don't know, don't fail for a year and then you fail completely hard. But if you fail in, I don't know, 3 months, 10 times or 20 times, then you will learn so much more. You spend so much less time on it, and you learn so much faster. And I think that's the mindset change, which is crazy differences. We have super institutes like in Germany and also Europe, which are addressing this topic, and which also make sure that um, we get faster and we learn more and we focus more on learning and iterating. But I think it's still like a super long process.
I'm resonating a lot with what you say. The lean startup, fail fast, iterate, get feedback, talk to customers as soon as possible, make something scrappy.
Yes.
I'm resonating with a lot of what you're saying. Uh, as me and Alex build out Decipher, that's exactly what we're doing. So he's just basically talking about our plans for the near future anyway. I love that. Um, Another question, do you think like the fragmented ecosystem in the EU at least, whereas in the US everything is just it's just the US. Do you think the fragmented system that we have in the EU affects startup success at all?
Mm, I I don't think so. I think that's not such a big of a problem, because like we are, first of all, we have like two things. For example, we have a digital approach. Like I experienced both of them, which helped me to really have not a fragmented system. And this is like we have more and more hubs in, for example, in Germany, but also in the EU. And for example, I just make it an example from Germany because I'm most familiar with it. You have like Munich and you have like Berlin, and those are super crazy startup hubs where you have a lot of it. And there are coming more and more. Like for example, Leipzig is coming becoming more and more a startup hub. So we have more and more of those hubs, and we also have bigger hubs. Like for example, Unternehmertum, for example, as Europe's biggest entrepreneurship center, they also have like a huge hub, and it's also decentralized already, because like some people who went to Unternehmertum are now working from other places, but still have the ability to get resources out of that organization. And next to it is like also Sigma Squared Society, for example, which is like more like in exclamation marks the decentralized Silicon Valley, where you have like that the next Silicon Valley will not be like a location, but it will be like an organization. And for example, an organization like Sigma Squared Society is exactly that, where you have like all the people, but they are in now probably over 30 different countries on 5 different continents, and it's still able to bring them together and get all the resources you need. So I think that's not a problem at all. Of course, if you're living in a little village and you're an innovator there and you don't know anyone, yes, but that could be also be in the US. So I think the chances are there, and we already have like all those ecosystems. And I also think like we are definitely getting better in a super fast pace. Like we are literally getting faster in the whole ecosystem when it comes also to Europe and Germany. Yeah.
So I think you're touching on something quite crucial there, which is the importance of community when it comes
Yes.
to raising and fostering startups. Something Silicon Valley does extremely well is that it's massively centralizing talent of young individuals, but also venture capital. So capital is also readily found in Silicon Valley, and there's a high risk tolerance. Do you think there needs to be some sort of, I think you touched on the Sigma Square Society in the case you believe there could be some decentralized Silicon Valley, but do you think that Europe, in order to address this in the short term, would have to maybe decide and just agree on a centralized hub to send all your best talented people and just see what they come up with? Or do you think it's possible to continue here where you have Paris, Berlin, London, and you just mentioned Munich as well, as being these different hubs where you're spreading out the talent?
Cool. Then that's a different question where I can give like a 100% sure answer. But I think like I think it's it's not too bad to have different centers, because I think it's manageable right now. So those hubs are also interconnected with each other. They cooperate together, and um, they are communities within themselves. But of course, it would be great to have like one framework where we connect all of them. But I think right now they are working more and more on something like that. But it's still not necessary to be at one place. I think like from time to time to come to one place and one location, to be there, gather there, and have that connection and that serendipity happen, is super important. But I think that already happens, and it's also possible if you from time to time see each other and connect with each other. Yeah, I think that's, from my experience so far, this is not the core problem.
Okay. Um, for me, when you're speaking, I draw an analogy to remote working versus working in person with people. I prefer working in person a lot more because just there's just something very different in eyes when we brainstorm. We actually prefer doing it in person than remotely because there's just something different about just speaking to each other face to face and just drawing something out on a whiteboard. So for me as a builder, I prefer like being in person, right? Do you guys do any events like that organized by Sigma Square?
Yes, we do. And for example, I'm 100% on your side. Like, I think working in person is super important. Um, I don't think that you need to do it all the time, but I still think that working all the time at the same area or the same spot, same location, still drives up yeah, you are way more productive. Like the productivity increases so far, because like when I have we have it, for example, at Sigma Square, there are certain summits during the week, during the year, and there is the global summit, and to each summit or event you have like a co-working week. And in this week, when you're sitting together with super ambitious, super driven other people, and everyone is working, you're 10 times more productive. It doesn't, and that's the interesting thing. You don't need to sit together with your team all the time, but you need to sit together with other people who are still building. Because like, of course, there is like the saying, like, you're the equivalent of the 5 people you spend time with. Oh, it is it is true. Like, if you spend the time with super ambitious and kind people, the likeliness that you get successful is 10 times higher, because those are the most important traits. And I think like spending time together, working together, is the most important thing, but also as a team. Like, if you're working, for example, on your company, having your employees at the same space, it doesn't need to be all the time, but from time to time is crucial, because you build that connection, you build that trust, you build relationships on a completely different level, which are not possible yet remote. Maybe it will change, but right now it's by far not possible to have this power. I say like it serendipity happens when something like that is created, and you need those events where you sit together and come together. Of course.
Can I just pick your brains a little bit on it's not possible yet? What are you referring to exactly? AR?
Yes, I was referring to you. You never know what happens. Like what I was like a friend of mine. He bought the Apple Vision Pro, and I tried it, and I was so crazy flashed by what I had already 10 ideas in my mind, where I was like, oh wow, this will change everything. Um, I think there could be a solution to that, which but I don't know if it works. But for me, in the first moment, I'm a person who is super excited to try new tech and stuff out, and new processes and new innovation. Um, but I think if you can hold that momentum up, and that feeling of what you can achieve if you are in your virtual space and you have a completely new perspective on things. Maybe you can also work in that way together. I hope it's not everything of this is the future, that we only work together with Google Vision, or Apple Vision, or Microsoft Vision, because that would be super sad. But I think that has a lot of potential. So yeah.
There's some energy that can only be picked up in person. And I think in establishing a startup, that's probably the most important thing is sharing that energy with each other. But at the beginning of this conversation, you spoke about how the framework that you're creating is mainly tailored towards deep tech. Do you mind defining what deep tech is from your perspective? How the framework actually helps with deep tech in particular as well?
That's a very interesting question. I think like for me, deep tech is clearly something where you have a lot of research before you are able to build the actual product or go out. So you have a lot of investment which already needs to happen before you can go in the world and really are also able to commercialize it. And I think what's the interesting part in this is before you actually go deeper into all those this research, you need to validate certain things. Like you need to validate, hey, is there a potential commercial model behind it? Is it possible to really bring this on the market? And I think there are some questions, or not I think, but there are some questions and some topics you can address that really will help you to answer that questions before you go into the further validation. For example, like um, quantifying the value of your product, like trying to really see, hey, does it really help others to if I can I reduce the time they invest in things? Can I help them to make more money? Can I increase the quality and quantify this before you really dive deeper into the whole research and further working on the technology and further developing it. And I think so validating the market and also the first business model opportunities is definitely possible with a framework, and especially in the early stages, this will definitely help you. And also, like for example, I don't know, developing product offering ideas, because sometimes if you're working on deep tech, you sometimes don't even have like a product offering ideas. I like that. There was a very interesting story when someone was like, "Hey, I built a satellite. What should I do with it?" And you're like, okay, interesting. I think you already thought about it, but they already had it. And that's something that happens, and you can prevent those things. That's still cool because there is always the thing of market pull and tech push, and you also can do tech push, but it's a bit more complicated and a bit more risk even, I would say. And I think you can reduce the risk by validating certain hypotheses and yeah, by this increase the likeliness of success. Yeah. I think that's the main thing. And I think there is already, like, I forgot it, but there is also like an official statement on what is deep tech and what is high tech and what is normal tech. You can also Google that. That's there is a clear definition on what is what.
I think a really interesting example for me, I'm looking at ChatGPT, for example, right? That's something that took 6, 7 years in development. The company OpenAI started in 2015, 2016, and only in 2022 did they come out with a viral product. What steps are taken in that case in order to develop something that is, in 2015 that's so far ahead, 7 years ahead to develop an actual actionable and usable tool? What steps do you take or like in that process to actually validate market demand when you don't actually have anything, intrinsic to use?
Uh, I think that's a great question, but I think like OpenAI wasn't on the commercial path that early on. So they probably didn't think about in the beginning about this because it was more like an institute where they are like, okay, we are researching on AI for the greater good and how you can apply it. So they probably thought in products, but maybe not too much in even commercialization. And I think that is probably also something that came more and more with a higher investment, that there was a commercial pressure that you also need to make revenue and generate the revenue. That's the thing too in there. Like only like open source is super hard because like you will be so much slower if you have less money and of course you have more money if you can really capitalize on it later on. And I think that's what turned out when it was also in the case of ChatGPT, that they thought about later on okay, what could we do to literally build a product and later on commercialize. And I think ChatGPT is the perfect idea because of course in the beginning they had the tech, they had like the research and the open AI models, and they were like, okay, what could we do? So which product offering ideas are there? Then they also, that's the beauty. I also looked into it. They built a communication prototype and were like, hey, that's something we could do. And they already gathered some customer evidence or some user evidence. Is this something that really provides value to you? And then they literally had like I filled out a survey of them, and they really quantified quantified the market. I filled out a survey about ChatGPT. How unsatisfied would you be with if it's not longer available, ChatGPT? And they're literally validating, hey, is this really something that has product market fit? And I think they were like probably also because Sam Altman has like the Y Combinator perspective on it. They were doing all the steps, and I think that's how they did it. And they ChatGPT was only was only the MVP. Like it was only the MVP where they were like, no, that's the first thing where people would probably pay money because in the beginning it was still free. And then they were like, would people actually pay money? Then they validated it because they made like ChatGPT Pro. And then later on they developed it further. And then they had like certain other areas. For example, like all the APIs, which are probably making 10 times or probably not even 10 times, but I don't know how much more money they make with that because like I think like ChatGPT is only a fraction of what they do with that. But I think that was the first idea. They validated it, and then they went deeper and deeper and thought about what else could we do to commercialize it. And I think that's a quite interesting journey where you really can see how a company started with, hey, we are researching, we are doing stuff, and then thinking about what are product offering ideas, how can I validate them? They validated them, they quantified it also. What's the purpose? So, are you actually saving time through ChatGPT? What are you doing with ChatGPT? So, they really got that information and then built further and further and further and created also more products around, more product offerings around it.
Nice. You mentioned product market fit. For those of us who aren't as educated on that, do you mind explaining exactly what the elusive product market fit is?
I think like that there are product market fit. It's like one thing where literally nobody is agreeing on what others say. Like, and this is so super interesting because there are only also when it comes to super crazy tech entrepreneurs, so many different definitions of it. Like it is like of to sum it up, like it's the moment where you realize or I love the graphic. I think that's the best example. If like you're pushing the ball up the hill, and when you're up the hill and cross that line and the ball runs down and you are just running after that ball, trying to get hold of it and trying to reach it, then you have, I think that's how you feel if you have product market fit. And I think that's the best idea of describing it. Anything else, there are so many things how they measure it. Like you can do some surveys where you're like, how disappointed would you be if you don't have it? And I think like it's super hard to validate it with that one. Then there are some definitions where you can validate it super early on. So if you have people who already pay for it, who are willing to pay for it, some definitions already say this is product market fit, where I say no, that's way too early. And then they say it's when you really have the grip and when you realize, oh, you can now scale it and you really see that there is a huge demand, and people are way more people are willing to pay money for it. So to sum it up, there are so much definitions out there, and I will not add my definition to it, but I think like the beautiful picture of the ball running, rolling up the hill and then rolling down the hill is the perfect description of how it feels to have product market fit and what product market fit is about.
Yeah, yeah, I think another definition of that is if your engineering team is scrambling to scale up the servers to keep up with demand.
Yeah.
That's another
Yes,
perspective to look at
yes,
it as well.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, great. I mean, look, so you're let's just do a hypothetical one here, just out of interest. You're a German company with a very innovative product that's way ahead of its time. What is the process for integrating that product into like a fully commercialized product that society is willing to accept and pay for?
That's a huge question. So,
Well, how
what
does the VRMS framework help with that essentially?
okay, but that's probably something that's probably something you can do. Um, I think you will definitely, if it first works, you try to quantify more and more metrics to see where you actually provide the most value. Because in the end, it's always about the business model and it needs to work out, and there needs to be a revenue stream. And if you don't have the profit, if you don't see a road to profitability, it's not able. So you need to really dig deep and see, hey, where is a possibility based on quantifying the numbers where I could potentially reach the profitability the fastest. And then you literally make your hypothesis. What do I really need to do to reach that point? And then you do your experiments and see, hey, is it possible to validate it? So I think it's still a lot of experimentation, also if you're in that phase. But to scrape it down to one definition, you need to see where can you make revenue and where is the road to profitability. And I think you get those a hint of it by quantifying the market, and that's the thing why I also stress this topic so much on by quantifying your value proposition is one of the most important things I always address if I talk to early stage ventures, because I'm like, you can build a beautiful product, but in the end, you literally need to create value for someone, and then you need to quantify it. So what does it mean? Does this person save time? Does this person have a higher quality in what she or he or the entire organization is trying to do? Or do you just increase the quality? And if you increase the quality, they can probably earn more money with it because they can have higher prices. So quantifying the value of a product would be the step, and then based on that, you make your strategy and your rollout plan. But where can you find that road to profitability? I think
Yeah,
that's the interesting question we have here.
actually having the balls to try it as well, to put your product out there. Something that Google didn't do
Absolutely,
when
absolutely.
when it had a
Yes.
model just as good as GPT-3's, but it didn't try. But OpenAI did try, and now they're behind the ball on it.
And yeah, I think maybe that's also one thing I stress out a lot. Go out, show yourself to the world, expose yourself to the world, because like no matter what I talk about, it's always the moment that creates traction, that helps you to have and experience serendipitous moments. Because if you go out, you meet people who probably can help you with something, and if you really go out, you also can really validate what you're having, if there is a value or not. And it's going out, expose yourself to the world, really show what you have and what the value of it is, and then really get people to pay for it or give you any hint that it has a high quality. And in the end, it's about money. Like money is the thing that really gives you the feedback, hey, there is something that works and that has value.
I'm just going to play devil's advocate for what you said when you said expose yourself to the world as soon as possible. Is building a moat into your product something that you think about this early on? Is that something that you even consider that early on? Or stopping someone like Google from just coming along and building exactly what you have? What, and if so, how do you do that? Is it network effects? Is it actually the complicated R&D behind closed doors? What exactly is stopping others from just coming and copying exactly what you're doing if you're exposing yourself so early.
So you think like what the risk of being copied in the end?
Yeah. And is that something you even consider?
Um, I think like, of course, you need to secure your intellectual property, and if you're working on something really deep tech, then sometimes it's needed to not talk too much about the details, but it's still super important to go out there because you need a lot of knowledge. You need a lot of expert knowledge if you're working on deep tech, and you also it's quite hard to commercialize it. So you need a lot of expert that help you with that. So if you don't go out, how would you gain that perspective and that knowledge that you need to really make this thing a success? And I think so you still need to go out in a way, but then it's more about the level of information and the amount of information you go out with. You can also talk about a topic and making sure everyone understands in which industry you are and who you should talk to without even saying what you're doing. And I think so. I think it's still absolutely crucial, also in the early times, to go out there and make sure that you get that knowledge you need.
That's a complicated balance to strike, especially for
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like especially in deep tech, and if you don't have the money to secure your patents early on, not too easy. But if it would be easy, everyone would do it.
exactly. Yeah, that's true.
Brilliant. Okay, well, Leo, this has been an incredible conversation. I'm going to wrap things up here. Just get a little quick recap on the conversation. Obviously, went over the healthcare industry and your vision for the future with personalized healthcare and using telemetry in order to almost predict using your own virtual agents of yourself to see how your life could pan out if you didn't eat that pizza. And then you also spoke a little bit about the importance of putting out your product there early on and the challenges in Europe when it comes to the startup ecosystem. Another interesting question for you. Finally, what's next for you, man? Where can we look out for you in the future, and what's on the schedule?
That's super interesting. I think first of all, next for me is always improving and enabling sustainable health. So always working towards that. And next to that, also, yeah, going more in supporting deep tech ventures and healthcare ventures with the Venture Readiness Institute. Also, I think those two things and navigating it will definitely be a main focus. And the beauty of it has a lot of like synergies. So um, definitely, if I do one thing, I also contribute to the success of the other thing. So yeah, you can hopefully watch me changing our society to more sustainable health approaches and to help people to reach that goal of sustainable health.
Brilliant. Looking forward to it. And finally, how can listeners learn more about the Venture Readiness Institute or try and get involved?
Absolutely, like of course, online. Like I will share more information on that during the next month, probably also. And in general, always happy to have conversations because that's how it was built. Like it was not built because I was researching in my cabin, but it was built because like I collaborated and worked together with the smartest people I could find in the world and which were able for me to contact. So that's how everyone can contribute and also get value out of it because like it's definitely something that yeah was created through co-creation and bringing the smartest people from every area into one place and yeah really consolidating that knowledge to help drive innovation in healthcare and deep tech.
Yeah, we're really excited to see where you end up in the next couple of years and to see your vision realized for personal healthcare. Yeah. Thank you. We really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the nice conversation. Really enjoyed it. And I'm happy to help anytime if you have further questions or yeah, just having another conversation. Really enjoyed it.
Brilliant.